Welcome to Learn Yourself. Today we are going to study about chemical properties of metal. These topics are under CBSE Standard 10 syllabus from 3rd chapter. Earlier we have seen what are the physical properties of metal, non-metal and what are the exceptional cases from them. Here we are starting with the first chemical property of metal, that is, when metal burn in the air, what will happen? Now these reactions, when metal will burn in the air, then it will definitely going to react with oxygen, because with the help of oxygen metal will burn. When with the help of oxygen metal will burn, that means metal will combine with oxygen and they will form metal oxides. So here we are going to study one by one all the basic and main metals when they are going to react with oxygen, when they are going to burn in the air, then which kind of products they will form. So basically when we are saying that metal is burning in the air, that means it is going to combine with oxygen. And when metal will react with oxygen, it will form metal oxides. All the metal oxides are basic in nature. First, copper. When copper will react with oxygen, it will give us copper oxide. Aluminium will react with oxygen and it will give us aluminium oxide. Now, metal oxides are basic in nature, but some of the metal oxide, for example, aluminium oxide and zinc oxides will show both the type of property. That means they will show acidic as well as basic properties. That's why they are called amphoteric oxides. When the oxide will show both character, acidic as well as basic, then they are termed as amphoteric oxide. So when aluminium will react with acid, now we are checking their reaction with acid as well as with the base. So when aluminium oxide will react with acid, it will give us salt, aluminium chloride and water, just like neutralization reaction. In neutralization reaction also we will get, suppose for example here with the acid the base will be there, NaOH, then we will get here salt and water. Same way this oxide is amphoteric oxide. So with acid it will show basic character and it will give us salt and water. Now when it is reacting with base, it will show acidic character. So they are acting as base as well as acid. So that's why it is termed as amphoteric oxide. Now another important term is alkali. When metal oxide will form, all metal oxide are insoluble in the water. But some of the metal oxides are soluble in the water. So they are termed as alkali. When metal oxide will get soluble in the water, they are being basic in character, they will give us base. For example, sodium oxide. When react with water, it will give us base, that is sodium hydroxide. That's why they termed as alkali. Metal oxide which is soluble in the water. Same way we can also write reaction for potassium oxide, and when it will react with water it will get dissolved in the water and it will give us potassium hydroxide. So that's why when metal oxides are soluble in the water they will give us base, and those base are termed as alkali. These are some important term, that metal oxides are basic, then what are the amphoteric oxides, then what are the alkalis. Now coming back to our chemical properties of metal, that here I have noted down some of the metals. So we will see this metal when they are going to react with oxygen, when they are going to react and when they are going to burn in the air, what will happen. Potassium and sodium, they are very reactive. We cannot keep it open, they will catch fire. So we have to keep them immersed in the kerosene or in the oil, because they are very reactive. They will catch fire if we are keeping it open in the atmosphere. At room temperature also it will catch fire. So we have to keep them immersed in the oil or kerosene. Now magnesium, zinc and lead. When we are keeping them open in the atmosphere, then one thin layer of oxide will form on them and further oxidation will stop because of this oxide formation. So they will react with the atmospheric oxygen and they will form oxide layer on top of that metal. So once that layer will form, then no longer that metal will come in a contact with oxygen. So that layer will become a protective layer and further oxidation will not be possible for this metal. Now coming to iron, iron will not burn, but when we are taking a iron filling, then iron filling will readily burn with atmospheric oxygen. And silver and gold, these are termed as noble metals and they do not react at all. Even at high temperature also they will not react with atmospheric oxygen. So silver and gold will not show any reaction with atmospheric oxygen. But sodium, potassium, magnesium, zinc, lead and iron will show reaction with atmospheric oxygen according to their reactivity. Because here sodium and potassium are most reactive. In between magnesium, zinc and lead and iron will not burn with oxygen. We have seen under chemical properties that aluminium, when it will come in contact with oxygen, it will form aluminium oxide, or the oxygen will form a protective layer on the metal. So once that protective layer will form, the further oxidization of metal will not be possible. This oxide layer formation will save metal by being oxidized, and metal will not get oxidized further because of its own oxide layer on top of it. Now this process is known as anodizing. We are using the same chemical properties of aluminium and we will coat any article of aluminium. Aluminium is a metal which has very low melting point and it is abundant element on the earth. So aluminium is widely used in gift article and some showpiece article. So when we want aluminium to be a shiny, a colorful, then we are using the same chemical property of aluminium and we will coat a thick layer of oxide on the aluminium article. Further we can color this and further we can give a look, whatever a shiny or whatever type of pattern we want to do, it won't further, because of this protective layer of oxide on the metal, it will not further corrode by the oxidation. And the gift article or any article will remain, showpiece will remain as it is for years together. So how we are going to do this is an electrolytic cell. As an electrolyte, I have taken sulfuric acid. As a cathode, take any inert electrode, carbon, platinum, any electrode. And as an anode, I have taken here a gift article which you want to coat, on which we want to make a oxide protective layer. So this is my article. Now once the electricity will pass from the cell, the oxygen gas will evolve at anode and it will react with this aluminium. Of course, whatever article we are placing here, it should be very clean and its surface should be cleaned properly. So once that clean surface will come in contact with oxygen, it will immediately form an oxide layer. And after this process will end, it will form a thick protective layer on this article. So this article will be covered with a thick aluminium oxide layer and it will be further protected by atmospheric oxidation, atmospheric moisture, and it will remain same as it is, its shine will remain as it is for years together. Further we can paint it also. So here all the details I have noted down. Quickly we will go through this detail. That process of forming a thick oxide layer on aluminium is known as anodizing. So basically when aluminium will come comes in a contact with oxygen, it will automatically form a thin oxide layer on the surface. But here we are doing it artificially and manually. Why? Because we need a thick oxide layer. So the thick protective layer will safeguard the aluminium for longer period of time. Anode, we have taken a clean aluminium article on which we want oxide layer. Cathode, any chemically inert electrode we can take, for example carbon. Electrolyte, sulfuric acid. Oxygen gas evolved at anode. This we have to remember, that what all oxygen gas will evolve at anode will react with aluminium and it will make thick protective layer. So this is a process of anodizing by which we are protect aluminium article and aluminium showpiece. In previous videos we have seen that how metal and non-metal will behave when they are coming in contact with oxygen and when they are burning in the air. Here we are going to see that when metal will react with water, what will happen. All this reaction, what all chemical properties we are seeing for the metal, it will vary as per their reactivity. Earlier we have discussed that when potassium and sodium will come in a contact with air, they will catch fire because they are very reactive. But gold and silver, they are least reactive. Even though we are burning, they will not at all react with the air or atmospheric oxygen. So it is depending upon how reactive they are. So potassium and sodium are very reactive metal. On the other hand, if we are talking about silver and gold, they are least reactive metal. And in between the metal like magnesium, aluminium, zinc, their reactivity will depend upon how vigorously they are reacting and how vigorously the other reactant are reacting with those metals. So it will differ as per their reactivity. So here when metal, these two are generalized reaction, that when metal will react with water, they will form metal oxide and hydrogen gas. But earlier we have discussed that some of the metal oxides can soluble in the water. When that is the case, they will form metal hydroxide. We have seen this when Na2O will get dissolved in the water and they will give us sodium hydroxide. Similar kind of reaction we can see with potassium also. So when metal oxide will react and will get dissolved in the water, they will give alkali. The metal oxide which are dissolved in the water are known as alkali. So this is alkali. So this reaction will possible only if metal oxide are soluble in the water. Otherwise here the reaction will stop. When metal will react with water, we will get metal oxide and hydrogen reaction. This reaction will only be possible with potassium and sodium. So now we will start from here, that how potassium and all other metal will react with water. When potassium will react with water, it will give us potassium hydroxide and hydrogen and energy. Here potassium and sodium are very reactive. Once they will start reacting with water, immediately they will catch fire, and fire is so vigorously that fire will spread out that even whatever hydrogen will produce from this reaction will get burned out in this reaction. So at the end of reaction, lot of energy will be liberated at the end. Sodium also so violently and vigorously it will react with water that it will catch fire, and this hydrogen will get burned in this fire, and lot of heat energy will be produced at the end of the reaction. When calcium will react with water, we will get calcium hydroxide and hydrogen. Magnesium also will similarly react with water and will give us magnesium hydroxide and water. Here in the case of calcium and magnesium, that hydrogen gas bubble will stick to this metal. So metal will start floating on the liquid. So this thing will happen with both calcium and magnesium, that they will give us calcium and hydroxide, but the metal will start floating because the hydrogen gas bubble will attach to that or stick to that. Now aluminium, zinc and iron, they will not react with cold water, they will not react with hot water. So here this reaction is with cold water. This is with cold water, this potassium and sodium. So they are so reactive that even with cold water, immediately they will catch fire. So here aluminium, zinc and iron, they will not react with cold water and not react with hot water. They will react with steam. So they will produce aluminium oxide and iron 3 oxide and hydrogen gas. Now with the case of lead, copper, silver and gold, they do not react at all. So this metals are very least reactive, so they will not react at all with the water. Now we will see the reaction of metal with acid. So first, here we are taking diluted hydrochloric acid. So when magnesium will react with acid, it will give us magnesium chloride. So it is salt and hydrogen gas. So this is a generalized equation that metal will react with dilute acid and it will give us salt and hydrogen gas. Now hydrogen gas will not evolve when metal will react with nitric acid, because nitric acid is very strong oxidizing agent. So when hydrogen gas will evolve, it will further oxidize hydrogen gas also into water, and the nitrogen will get further oxidized into any of this compound, that is NO, NO2 and N2O. Nitrous oxide, nitric oxide and nitrogen dioxide. Metal will react with nitric acid, the hydrogen gas will not evolve. Hydrogen gas will further oxidize and it will form water, whereas nitrogen will further oxidize and any of this compound will form in this reaction. Now magnesium and manganese will react with nitric acid, very dilute nitric acid, and they will form a nitrate of the metal and hydrogen gas. So this is an exceptional, that magnesium and manganese, when reacting with nitric acid, the hydrogen gas will evolve. But the other metals, when they are reacting with nitric acid, the hydrogen gas will not evolve, but it will further oxidize and it will give us water. Now aqua regia is important term, that when we need to dissolve a metal which are not very reactive, that is gold and platinum. So when we are making aqua regia, that is mixture of hydrochloric acid and nitric acid. Both this acid we are taking a concentrated one into a ratio of 3:1. That means 3 part of concentrated hydrochloric acid and 1 part of concentrated nitric acid. When this mixture we are preparing, we can dissolve gold and platinum into it, because being a noble metal, this metal are very least reactive and it is not easy to dissolve this metal. So this is how metals are reacting with hot water, cold water and acid. This, what I have noted down here, is a reactivity series of a metal. So the topmost metal, that is potassium, is the most reactive of all, and here this gold is the least reactive metal of all. So here gold and silver, they are least reactive metal of all the metals. Why? Because they are noble metal, and that's why it is safe to wear their jewelry, because they will not react with water as well as air. If they were reacting, then we could not wear the jewelry, because immediately they will react with the water and air and they cause harm to us. So here potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, lead, hydrogen. Even though hydrogen is a gaseous element, we have noted down here because hydrogen is an important element which is reactive, and they are equally reactive to metal and they will react with metal. So that's why we have noted down hydrogen here. then copper, then Hg is a mercury, then silver and gold. As we are coming from top to bottom, the reactivity of a metal will decrease. That means if sodium is there, then sodium is reactive compared to the next metal, that is calcium. So same for calcium and magnesium, that calcium is reactive compared to magnesium, magnesium is reactive compared to aluminum. We can also say that sodium is reactive compared to all the metal which are noted down from the sodium, and potassium is the most reactive compared to all the metal. Now what will happen, whenever in the reaction the more reactive metal will be there, then it will displace the least reactive or less reactive metal from the solution or from the reaction. Here two examples are there. Here I have taken a solution of copper sulfate. Solution of copper sulfate is there, and I have hanged one iron nail here. So when a reaction will taking place in between iron and copper sulfate, now if iron is reactive compared to copper, then it will displace copper from the solution. And if iron is not reactive compared to copper, then it will not displace copper from the solution. Now we will check here, where is a iron and where is a copper. This is a iron and this is a copper. Fe or iron is reactive compared to copper, so it will displace copper from the copper sulfate solution. So here the copper will be alone and the solution will become FeSO4. This will happen when one more reactive metal will be there and one less reactive metal will be there. More reactive metal will take a place of less reactive metal. So to understand this and to get a correct answer, you have to remember this reactivity series of the metal. Then only you can guess that which metal is reactive and which metal will displace another metal. Now coming towards our next example. Here copper is there and the solution is FeSO4. Now copper is least reactive and compared to iron. So will it displace iron from its solution? No. Why? Because copper is less reactive compared to iron. So copper will not replace FeSO4, Fe from FeSO4. So this reaction won't be possible and this reaction won't be possible, and here this will remain as it is. There won't be any reaction in between these two. Here that reaction was possible. Why? Because CuSO4, whatever will be there in the solution, will get displaced. That you have to remember. In the solution, if weaker metal or least reactive metal will be there, then only it will get displaced. This is a solid form of metal, so it will not get displaced. You can displace from the solution because they will be in a solution. So this metal form can displace it. But here it is in the solid form, so this cannot displace it. Again, whatever metal are reactive, they are the topmost metal. As you are going down, the reactivity of the metal will decrease. So potassium is the most reactive metal, whereas gold is the least reactive metal of all the metal. And these reactions are important, and to get the correct answers from this reaction or of this reaction, you have to remember the reactivity series of the metal. Now let us see some of the example to see whether this reaction are possible or not. First is magnesium and zinc sulfate. So here, to check this whether this reaction, displacement reaction, will be possible or not, we have to check here. Where is magnesium? This is a magnesium and this is a zinc. So magnesium is reactive compared to zinc. So the magnesium can displace zinc from this compound. So it will be MgSO4 and zinc will be alone. So this reaction can possible. Now here zinc and magnesium sulfate is there. Zinc is less reactive compared to magnesium, so it cannot displace magnesium because zinc is less reactive compared to magnesium. Now next is aluminium and iron sulfate. So in this is a ferrous sulfate, this is a aluminium. So where is the aluminium? Here it is an aluminium and here our iron is there. So aluminium is reactive compared to iron. So it will displace iron from the compound. So it will become Al2SO4 thrice aluminium sulfate and iron will be left alone. So you have to always check that whatever element is alone is reactive compared to other metal element or not. If it is reactive, then it can displace. It can take the place of that element. If not, then the reaction won't be possible and it cannot take the place of the non-reactive element. Now how can we decide that a particular atom will donate electron and particular atom will accept electron? So here there are some noble gases in our periodic table. So helium is a noble gas, neon is a noble gas and argon is a noble gas. So helium's atomic number is 2, neon's atomic number is 10 and argon's atomic number is 18. If we will see that electronic configuration, then helium is 2, then rest all will be empty. Then neon is 2, 8. Argon is 2, 8 and 8. If we will see that K, L and M shell, then all the shells, whatever shells are filled with the electrons are completely filled. As per their maximum capacity, they are completely filled. So that's why they are known as noble gas and they are least reactive. Why atom will be reactive? Why any metal will be reactive? Because their shells are incomplete. If we will see electronic configuration of sodium, then 2, 8, 1. In this third shell, only one electron is there. If sodium wants to be stable, then it has to follow electronic configuration of either argon or neon. So it's all the shell will be filled. Then only the atom will be stable. These atoms are stable. Why? Because all the orbitals are filled with the electron. If they are not filled, then they are reactive. They want to become stable like noble gas. So they will see that whether to follow neon's electronic configuration is easy or argon's electronic configuration is easy. So if it will lose one electron, then it will become neon's electronic configuration. And if we are adding 7 electrons into this, then it is going to follow argon's electron. If it will lose one electron, then it will become like neon. If we are adding 7 electrons, then it will become like argon. So which one is easy? To lose one electron or to add 7 electrons? Yes, it is easy that by losing one electron, it will become like neon and it will become stable. So all the metal, sodium, magnesium, calcium, all the metal will donate electron and they will become stable like their nearest noble gas. It is depending upon their atomic number that which noble gas is nearer to them. But all the metal are positive in character. So all the metal will donate electrons. So here from 281, sodium will donate one electron and will become stable and form a positive ion. And what is a positive ion? That is Na+. This 1 plus charge will suggest that it has donated one electron. and it will become sodium ion. Because it is a positive ion, it is known as cation. Now coming towards chlorine. Chlorine is a non-metal. Its atomic number is 17 and electronic configuration is 287. Now for the chlorine, neon and argon too are there. Neon and argon. Both are nearest noble gas. Now if chlorine wants to be stable like neon, it has to lose 7 electrons. And if chlorine wants to be stable like argon, it has to add 1 electron. Now again, which one is easy? Adding 1 electron is easy. So what chlorine will do? That chlorine will accept 1 electron. Accept 1 electron and it will become like 288. And by doing so, it will become chlorine anion. Because it is a negative ion, we termed as anion. Chlorine is an anion. Now all the non-metals are having negative character and they will accept electron and form anion. All the metal will donate electron and form cation. Now when metal and non-metal will come together, whatever sodium will lose 1 electron, that 1 electron chlorine will accept and they will form a bond. That we will see. So here we are going to study sodium chloride, that is NaCl. Here sodium is a metal and chloride is non-metal. When these two will come together, they will form a chemical bond and that chemical bond is known as electrovalent bond. Earlier as we have seen sodium, its atomic number is 11. So here its electronic configuration is 281. So what it will do? To become stable like neon, it will donate 1 electron and it will form Na+. Its electronic configuration is 28 and 1 electron will be liberated. Now what will happen with chlorine? Chlorine's atomic number is 17. So its electronic configuration is 287. Now this chlorine will accept 1 electron and it will become Cl-. So here the electronic configuration will be 288. If you will see the cation and anion, this positive ion and this negative ion's electronic configuration is similar to the noble gas. Here neon's noble gas configuration is followed by Na+ and here argon's electronic configuration is followed by chlorine. Now here we are representing our electrovalent bond by dot diagram. So what is the meaning of dot diagram? Dot diagram means we are showing all the valence electron on element. So what are the valence electron? Valence electron means a last shells electron. Only we are showing last shells electron. So here I am showing that this 1 electron of sodium. Why? Because 1 electron is there. When it is going to combine with chlorine. Now how many electrons are there in chlorine? 7. So here I am showing with the cross to separate it from the sodium. So this 7 and 1 is there. Now in the next I am showing that this sodium is transferring this electron to chlorine, because sodium wants to lose the electron, chlorine wants to accept the electron. So here it will become like this, Na+. So here it will be Na+, and in the next bracket we are showing that all the 8 electrons are there in the chlorine, and this chlorine will get a negative charge. This bond formation is known as electrovalent bond, and our molecule, that is sodium chloride, is formed here. So this is electrovalent bond. When electron transfer will be there in a chemical bond, then that bond is known as electrovalent bond. Whatever electron is being donated by the metal, the same number of electron will be accepted by a non-metal. Then only the bond will form. One electron donated by the sodium and the same one electron has been accepted by the chlorine. So both has formed an electrovalent bond. By doing so, both became stable like noble gas. So our today's topic is occurrence and extraction of matter. The meaning of occurrence is how it is available in the nature or how it is available in the earth crust. And extraction means whatever form we are getting from the earth crust of metal or its combined state, then how we are extracting metal from that. It is depending upon metal's reactivity. If metal is very reactive, then obviously it will be there in the combined state, it will be there in the compound state. And if metal is very less reactive, like gold and silver, they are very less reactive. We have seen earlier in our reactivity series that these metals are lying below all other metals. So these metals are less reactive, so they will be there in their natural state. They will not be there in combined state or they will not be there in compound state. So here the element or compounds which occurs naturally in the earth crust are known as mineral. So here, what is the meaning of mineral? Mineral in broad term, any element we are getting from the earth crust, or if the element is very reactive, then they will be there in the compound form. So all these things what naturally occurs in earth crust are known as minerals. Now at some places means in social studies also we have studied that in India at some places there are mines of metals. So at some places you will see that this metal is in high amount. So how that can be possible? At some places mineral contain very high percentage of particular metal. So in this metal, any element will be there in mineral in very high percentage, and these minerals are called ores. Now how will you decide that this metal is present in very high percentage? When you are taking that particular ore and you are extracting it, so it should be beneficial to you that whenever you are extracting metal, it should be profitable. So in metallurgy, whatever the science of extracting metal is known as metallurgy. So whenever you are extracting a metal, so the process of extraction is very tedious, very large and very expensive. So if you are getting enough amount of metal from that ore, then only it will be profitable for any person. So when the percentage is very high and that extraction process is profitable, then those minerals are termed as ore. For example, bauxite. In bauxite, the percentage of aluminium is very high. So to extract aluminium from bauxite is very easy and it is profitable. So that's why we termed bauxite as an ore of aluminium. So this happens only at some places where some metals are in high percentage in earth crust. Then only we can term those minerals as a ore. So for each and every metal there is one particular ore, and we have given them a different names according to their ore, and impurities remain present along with that. So let us discuss more about ore. So let us now understand that according to the reactivity, how metal will naturally occur in the earth crust. So this is our reactivity series. As we are going down, so these metals are least reactive and this metal are highly reactive. So all this potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium and aluminium, we always need to do electrolysis to separate them from their impurities and from their combined state. Now whenever I am saying it is remain present in their combined state, that means they are combined with any other element. That means if they have combined with sulfur, then it is termed as sulfide ore. When they have combined with oxygen, then that mineral is termed as oxide ore. This means we have to extract potassium or sodium or any one of this metal from its sulfide ore. So we have to separate them from sulfur. So this is termed as sulfide ore, and how we can pronounce this? Sulfide ore of calcium or oxide ore of calcium. Now they never found in their natural state, their native state, or in free state. They never be available in free state. They'll always be in combined state because they are very reactive. And which process we are using to extract them? Electrolysis. Now these metals are highly reactive. Their reactivity is high. These are medium reactive metal. So zinc, iron, lead and copper, they are medium reactive metal. They are not very highly reactive as well as they are not least reactive. So we can extract them with a reduction by using carbon element. Now they are present in nature along with oxide, sulfur and carbonate. So their ore are oxide ore, sulfide ore and carbonates. So they are available naturally along with this element in a combined form: oxide, sulfide and carbonates. Oxides are along with oxygen, sulfide is along with sulfur and carbonates is along with CO3. Then silver and gold. Copper and silver are relatively active compared to gold. So sometimes they are in a combined state with sulfur and oxygen. So sometimes we get the ore in which they are remain present in a combined state. But generally gold, silver and copper remain in free state in nature. So in earth crust, these metals are available in their native state, in their free state. So here we are not discussing any method to extract them. So this is how we are getting all this metal in earth crust. Now let us understand, when we are extracting a metal, then which process we are following, and this extraction of metal is depending upon which impurity is present into them. So let us understand that. Ore. What is ore? A mineral in which one particular metal present in high percentage. That mineral is termed as ore. So we are guessing here that ore is a one particular mineral of a metal. From that we can extract our desired metal. So here, according to the reactivity of metal, these metals have been divided into three types: highly reactive metal, medium reactive metal and low reactive metal. So first we are talking about highly reactive metal. Earlier we have seen that potassium, sodium, calcium, all those are highly reactive metal. So when metals are highly reactive, which process we are following? We are following electrolysis and we will get a pure metal. Going towards a medium reactive metal, when medium reactive metal will be there are possibilities of two types of ore for that. First is carbonate ore, when a metal is combined with CO3. So that termed as carbonate ore. And second is when metal is combined with sulfur. So that ore is termed as sulfide ore. When carbonate impurities will be there, then we have to perform this process. It is known as calcination. When sulfide ore will be there, when sulfur is present along with our metal, then we have to perform this method. It is known as roasting. So it is depending upon which impurities are present in the ore, or we can say metal are combined with which elements. So according to that, we have to prefer a process of extraction or process of purification. If carbonates are present into that, then we have to perform calcination. If sulfurs are present into that, then we have to perform roasting. But when we are performing these two different things, we will get metal along with oxide. So we will get oxide form of metal. Even though carbonates and sulfide will be there, after performing calcination and roasting upon them, we will get oxide of that particular metal. After that, we will do a reduction that we have discussed earlier, that along with the carbon, we will reduce this oxide and we will get our pure metal. And some more steps of purification will be there, and then we will get our pure metal. Now when metals are of low reactivity, for example copper, silver, gold, then sulfide ore will be there. That means they present along with the sulfur compound will be there. Then we are performing roasting. So this is common. Whenever the sulfide ore will be there, we are doing roasting. Whenever the carbonate ore will be there, we are doing calcination. So here we are doing roasting and we will get a metal, and refining stage will be followed after that. So these are the steps when low reactive metal will be there. These are the steps when metals are from medium reactivity. For example zinc, iron and so on. And when metals are very reactive, then we have to perform electrolysis to separate them from their combined state. So here first we are discussing about the metal which are least reactive, or the metal which are placed at the bottom of the activity series. So metals low in activity series, this is how we are extracting them. It is not very difficult to extract them because they are not very reactive. So the bond between them and the impurity is not very strong. So we can easily extract them. So here this is an ore of mercury. It is called cinnabar or it is called cinnabar. Now this is termed as oxide ore of mercury. That means the oxygen is remain present as an impurity, or it is combined with oxygen in its ore. So this ore is known as cinnabar. Now this molecular formula of ore is HgO, mercury oxide. Now when mercury oxide will be there, then with simple heating we can separate mercury from its oxide. Sometimes it is also remain present along with the sulfur. Then it is sulfide ore of mercury. So when it is remain present with sulfur, simply when heating in oxygen or when heating in the air, we will get mercury oxide and sulfur dioxide gas. This mercury oxide again we will heat and we will get our mercury in liquid form. So this is how we are extracting mercury from its oxide ore and from its sulfide ore. Here we will get mercury and oxygen separated. Now when we are talking about copper, copper is also placed low in the activity series. So copper, when it is combined with sulfur, sulfide ore of copper will be there, or oxide ore of copper will be there. Simply when we are heating in the air, we can separate them from their impurities. When copper sulfide, we will heat it in the presence of air, we will get copper oxide and sulfur dioxide gas. Here also copper oxide and copper sulfide, when we are heating them in the presence of air, then we will get our copper as a metal or copper as our desired product. We will separate them from its sulfide ore or oxide ore. So this sulfur dioxide gas will separate it from the copper. So this is how we can separate a metal from its oxide ore or sulfide ore. But this is possible when they are placed low at the activity series, because they are not very reactive, so it is easy to extract them. discussed the metal which are placed at the low or at the bottom of the activity series, how can we separate them. So we have discussed that simply in the presence of air when we are heating them, then oxides and sulfide ore of that particular metal we can separate from its impurity. Now here we are discussing about metals which are present at the middle of the activity series. That means they are moderately reactive. They are not very reactive, but they are also not least reactive. So these metals are remain at the middle of the activity series, that is iron, zinc, lead and copper. These metals are available in two types of their combined state. First is sulfide and second is carbonate. So their ores are sulfide ore or carbonates ore. So from this we will get the oxide of that particular metal and then a purification step will be followed. So when sulfide ore of any metal will be there, then we will heat it with excess of air and we will get oxide of that particular metal. So this method is known as roasting. So when we are performing roasting, when sulfide ore of metal will be there, then we are performing roasting. Now when carbonate ore will be there, then with limited air we will heat it and we will get oxide. The result from both the method we will get oxide ore of that particular metal. But the process will be different because our impurities or the metals are combined with sulfur and carbonate. So those elements and those ions are different. So our process will be different. So here carbonate ore is there. So we will heat it with limited air and we will get oxide. This process is known as calcination. So when sulfur will be present along with the metal, we will perform roasting. So in that we will take excess air and we will heat it and will get oxide ore of that metal. When carbonate will remain present as an impurity or in the combined state, then we will perform calcination. That means in limited air we will heat it and we will get oxide ore of that metal. Now from this oxides we will perform reduction, and reduction we are doing with the help of carbon, and we will get a pure form of metal. Why reduction? Because here it is combined with oxygen. When a removal of oxygen is happening, that means it is reduction, and as a reducing agent we are using carbon. Now let us take one example of zinc, that when zinc is combined with sulfur and when zinc is combined with carbonate, what we are doing? So here zinc is along with sulfur, so we have to perform roasting. So along with excess air, we are heating it and we will get oxide of zinc, zinc oxide, and sulfur dioxide gas will be liberated. Then when carbonate will be there, zinc carbonate will be there, then we are not using air because we are performing this reaction in limited air. This is calcination. So we will get here zinc oxide and carbon dioxide as our subproduct. So this is roasting and this is calcination. Now from this two reaction we are getting our product as zinc oxide, metal oxide. So that oxide we will reduce it along with carbon. So this is our reducing reagent. When removal of oxygen will be there, it is termed as reduction. So this reaction is reduction reaction. So from this we will get our pure form of metal, that is zinc, and carbon monoxide gas will be liberated. So when metals like iron, zinc, lead and copper will be there, then there are two types of impurities will remain present in their ore. First is sulfide and second one is carbonate. If sulfur is there, then we have to perform roasting. If carbonate is there, we have to perform calcination. And as a result, we will get oxide of that metal. That we will reduce it further and we will get pure form of metal. When you will understand this conceptually, this is very easy, but you have to remember this equations. So you have to practice, you have to write it multiple times, then you will remember it. But once you will understand that which kind of impurities are remain present, then it will automatically strike in your mind that when sulfur is there, you have to perform roasting, and when carbonate impurity is there, you have to perform calcination reaction. Now here at the stage of reduction, sometimes we are also using a displacement reaction to change the form of the metal. So let us study that. So after performing calcination and roasting on the metal, sometimes we are also using a displacement reaction to extract our metal. We know what is displacement reaction. That from highly reactive metal we will displace least reactive or less reactive metal. So here we have manganese oxide, and manganese is our desired metal or desired product. So here manganese oxide, when we are reacting it with aluminium, here aluminium is more reactive compared to manganese. So when this reaction will happen, Al will combine with oxygen. So Al will in turn replace the manganese from this compound. This is manganese oxide. So from manganese oxide, aluminium will replace manganese because aluminium is more reactive compared to manganese. So in this reaction we will get our metal in pure form, that is manganese, and this is Al2O3, this is aluminium oxide, and heat will be liberated out. This reaction is exothermic reaction, and large amount of heat will be liberated at the end. So the heat is so much more that whatever metal we will get here is in liquid form. So because of this large amount of heat which is produced at the end of the reaction, what all metal will be there, what we are extracting will generally be in the liquid form. Because of this heat, this metal will be in liquid form. So as a result we will get metal, but it will be in the liquid form. So whenever you are writing this reaction, don't forget to write this state of metal, that will be always liquid. This will become liquid because of the large amount of heat will be produced at the end. This is a displacement reaction. So this reaction is special because this is known as thermite reaction, and this is also used to join railway tracks. In this, iron oxide is there. Iron 2 oxide is there. When this will react with aluminium, so aluminium will replace iron from iron oxide, and we will get our iron in liquid state. And here aluminium oxide will be in the compound state. So here aluminium has replaced iron because aluminium is comparatively reactive compared to iron, and large amount of heat is generated at the end. So this heat is so much more, and the large amount of heat which we are using to join railway tracks, and this reaction is termed as thermite reaction. So this can be asked in reason that iron oxide and aluminium's reaction is used to join railway tracks, or thermite reaction is used to join railway tracks, or extraction of metal, the displacement reaction will give our desired product in liquid form. Why? So the answer will remain same, that the large amount of heat will be produced at the end, so our metal will be in liquid form, or that heat we will use to join railway tracks. And this reaction, this particular reaction is known as thermite reaction. Under chapter 3, metal and non-metals, we are going to study extraction of metals and refining of metal. In this, the electrolysis is the process which we are using. So before going to those topics, we have to study thoroughly that what is electrolysis process. So here this is a general idea about electrolysis process, that how it is happening. In electrolysis process, one electrolytic cell will be there. This is electrolytic cell. Electrolytic cell means one vessel in which we are carrying out the electrolysis process. This cell should be non-conductor of electricity, because once we will start the electricity, that electricity should not come out. So this cell should be non-conductor of electricity. Now in this we are taking one liquid medium through which we will pass electricity. It will help us to pass electricity. This is termed as electrolyte. The liquid medium which will help us to pass the electricity is termed as electrolyte. This can be aqueous solution of any salt, for example NaCl. When NaCl we are dissolving in the water, we will get Na plus and Cl minus. So these two types of ion we will get by dissociation of NaCl. So this is an electrolyte. In this NaCl we have added up. So that is my electrolyte. Now this is electrode. This both are termed as electrons. As electrodes we can take graphite, copper or any battle electrode. So here there are two electrodes. One electrode I have attached with a small terminal of the battery. This is a negative terminal. This is a positive terminal. This small line suggests a negative terminal of the battery and longer line suggests the positive terminal of the battery. Since this electrode I have attached with the negative terminal of the battery, this will become my negative electrode. And this electrode I have attached with positive terminal of the battery. This electrode has become my positive electrode. Electrodes do not have any kind of nature. They are not positive and they are not negative. But it is depending upon which side of battery we are connecting to them. Which terminal of the battery we are connecting to them. Now here the negative electrode is termed as cathode electrode and positive electrode is known as anode electrode. So there are two types of electrode. One is cathode, another one is anode. This is fixed, that whatever is positive is termed as anode, whatever is negative is termed as cathode electrode. Now here from the electrolyte we have two types of ions. One is positive, one is negative. Once we will start the passage of current, this positive ion will attracted towards the negative electrode. So positive ions will migrate towards negative electrode. This is our positive ion. It will migrate towards negative electrode. This is my negative ions. They will migrate towards positive electrode. Opposite attracts. So whatever positive ions will remain in the electrolyte, they will travel towards negative electrode and negative ions will travel towards positive electrode. So in electrolysis process, what will happen? First we have compound. Once we are putting it in the water, they will dissociate into Na plus and Cl minus. After this we will start passing a current. So once we will start passing a current, they will move towards their respective electrodes. So Na will go towards cathode. So this is cathode and Cl, there are two ions Na and Cl. So Cl will move towards anode. Now, once they are reaching their respective electrode, till now they are with charge. Once they are reaching here, they will lose their charge. So, this Na plus will become Na. So, this process is known as discharging. They will become discharged. Once they will reach the opposite charged electrode, they will discharge. So, Na plus will become Na and Cl minus will become Cl. So, from plus it will become Na and this Cl will also get discharged and will become Cl. They will become neutral atom, and whatever we will get is our respective product at these electrodes. So once they are reaching at their respective electrodes, what will happen? Sodium is a metal. So once it will get discharged, it will become sodium metal. So we will get sodium metal as a product at cathode electrode. Now Cl is Cl minus and chlorine is not a stable atom. Alone chlorine is not a stable. So it will form a bond with another chlorine and it will become Cl2 gas. So this is our product at this terminal. So that is our positive electrode and it is anode. So at anode we will get chlorine gas. So this is how our process will work. That first NaCl we have taken in water, so it will dissociate into Na plus Cl minus. They will move towards their respective electrode. Here it will be anode, here it will be cathode. So once they are reaching at cathode, Na plus will become Na metal and the Cl minus will become Cl2 gas. So this process is known as, they will get discharge. Once they will reach at their electrode, they will discharge and this is our desired product. So this is how the electrolysis process will happen. This process will happen with the help of electricity. So that's why this is known as electrolysis. Earlier we have seen that how to extract the metal which are at the bottom of the activity series. So they are least reactive and it is easy to extract them from its ore. Then we have discussed the metal like zinc, iron, calcium and all which are placed at the middle of the reactivity series, and we are doing calcination and roasting process to separate them. Now we are talking about extraction of metal which are placed at the top of the activity series. That means they are highly reactive. Metals like potassium, sodium and all. So they are very reactive. So with simple reaction we cannot separate them with its combined compound or with its impurity. So here this is a process which is known as electrolysis process. In this, one electrolytic cell will be there. This is known as electrolytic cell, in which the electrolysis will happen. This process is known as electrolysis. Since this process is governed with the help of electricity, this is known as electrolysis or electro and lysis. Lysis means process, electro means a power supply or current. So in this, one liquid medium will be there. It is known as electrolyte. Electrolyte means one liquid form will be there through which the current will pass. So electrolyte should be such that which is conductor of electricity. Here we have taken NaCl and we want to separate Na metal from this. So in this medium we have taken a water as an electrolyte. In that we have taken NaCl. Na is a metal which is highly reactive, which we want to separate through this process. So once we will start the current. Now here this is a battery This is a negative terminal, this is a positive terminal. This negative terminal is attached with this electrode, that means this is a negative electrode. This is a negative electrode and its name is cathode. Cathode is a negative terminal and cathode is a negative electrode of electrolytic cell. Now this is attached with a positive terminal of a battery. So this is a positive electrode and its name is anode. So there are two electrodes. Electrodes are used to conduct the electricity, and at electrode we will get our respective product. This is negative electrode, this is positive electrode. Now in this, when we are taking NaCl, so NaCl will dissociate in the form of Na plus and Cl minus. Dissociation means we are decomposing compound, and from this one Na plus we will get and Cl minus we will get. So here this is negative terminal, so positive ion will get attracted towards it and will migrate towards it. Whereas this is a positive terminal, so negative ions like Cl minus will attracted towards it and will travel towards it. So once they will migrate to their respective electrode, at cathode what will happen? Na plus will get one electrode and will discharge and will become Na metal. How this has happened? When Na has become Na plus, at that time Na has lose one electron. So once it will come to this electrode, it will again gain that electron and it will become Na metal. So first, from the compound the dissociation will happen, ions will be generated, then those ions will travel towards their respective electrode, means opposite charge electrode. There they will get discharged. Once they will get discharged, they will be in their native state. That means Na will become Na neutral. This is a neutral ion without any charge. So Na will become Na metal, sodium metal. So here at cathode, sodium will get one electron and will become sodium metal. So at cathode, which product we will get? Sodium metal. And anode, what will happen? The Cl minus will travel towards anode and it will become Cl2. So while Cl was there, it has become Cl minus, and when Cl minus has become, it has gained one electron and then it has become Cl minus. Now this Cl minus will move towards this electrode and will get discharged. So it has to lose one electron and again it will become Cl, and this Cl will form a covalent bond with another Cl, because one Cl atom is not stable. So it will form a covalent bond with another Cl and we will get here Cl2 as a gas. So what will happen? At anode we will get chlorine gas. Now let us see the whole process again. So this is what will happen at respective electrode. So here Na plus will travel towards cathode. This is negative electrode. So once Na plus will go here, it will discharge. Discharge means it will lose its charge and will become sodium metal. And Cl minus will move towards positive electrode and Cl minus will become Cl2. How it has become? Cl minus will get discharged, means it will become Cl. Now Cl is not stable enough, so it will form a covalent bond with another Cl and we will get Cl2 as a gas. So we will get here chlorine gas at anode. So this is our product. So we got here our sodium metal in the pure form as we are extracting metal. So sodium metal we will get at cathode, and chlorine gas we will get at anode. Now why we need to take a help of current? Because these metals are very reactive. With the reaction we cannot separate them. So sodium and potassium and calcium, these metals are so reactive, so that we have to perform electrolysis and we will get them in a purest form. Electrolysis process we are doing to get the purest form of metal. By this method we will get 99.9% pure form of metal. In my previous videos we have discussed about the extraction of metal, and the extraction of metal is according to their reactivity series. That the metal which are least reactive we are separating with a simple heating. The metal which are placed in the middle of the reactivity series we are performing calcination and roasting on that, and the metal which are very reactive we are performing electrolysis on that. So this was all about extraction of metal. Now here today we are talking about refining of metal. What is the refining of metal? Refining of metal is to get the metal in its purest form. So with this process we will get a metal up till 99.9% pure metal. So this refining of metal again, it is via a process of electrolysis. Earlier also we have studied that how electrolysis will happen. So here we are trying to refine a copper metal. So for that we have taken two different copper block. This is a cathode, this is anode. This has been attached with positive terminal of battery and this been attached with negative terminal of the battery. So this has become cathode and this has become anode. Now here as an electrolyte we have taken acidified CuSO4. This is our electrolyte. What is electrolyte? Electrolyte is a medium which will help to pass the current and it will become a medium of electrolysis process. So here this anode is a impure metal of copper. Both are copper only. This is an impure block of copper and this is a thin strip of copper sheet. Very thin we are taking, but this is a purest copper sheet and this is an impure block of copper. This impure block of copper we want to make it pure. So here we are doing this process to purify this block of copper, and this impure block of copper we have made it anode here. So this impure block of copper is our anode and pure thin strip of copper is our cathode. Once we will start the power supply, what will happen? That from anode the copper ion will move out. The copper ion, Cu+2 ion, will come into the electrolyte solution. Along with it, the impurities also come into electrolyte solution. Now in this, some impurities are dissolvable impurities and some impurities will be undissolved, remain undissolved in the solution. So whatever impurities will not get dissolved will settle down here. So that is known as anode mud. These are impurities. So from anode, once the process will start, the Cu+2 ion will comes out. They will remain in this electrolytic solution. Later they will move towards cathode because cathode is negative electrode and Cu+2 ion will attract towards it. So it will migrate towards cathode. So as the process will start, the anode will diminish in mass. because it is giving up its ions and whatever mass it has. So from that we will get Cu plus 2 ion and some impurities. Impurities will be of two types. Some will remain dissolved in the solution and some will remain undissolved in the solution. Whatever impurities will not get dissolved, they will settle down under the anode. These impurities will known as anode mud. These are impurities. Now from here, whatever Cu plus 2 ions are coming out, it will migrate towards our cathode. So here it will migrate and there it will discharge. So once this Cu plus 2 ion will come in a contact with cathode, Cu plus 2 will get discharged and will become Cu metal. So this copper metal will form a thin layer on this electrode. Which is this electrode? This electrode is cathode. So cathode will gain mass at the end of the process, because whatever copper ion is coming out from the anode will form a thin layer on cathode. So this electrode will gain mass and this electrode will lose mass. So whatever copper was there in anode has transferred to cathode. So that is how we are refining our metal. So what is a refining? Refining is a process by which we are separating a pure metal from its impurity. So here we have separated our metal from its dissolved and undissolved impurities, and at the end we will get our product at cathode. That our cathode is our product, because the pure form of copper will get coated on our cathode. We all know what is a corrosion. Corrosion is a rusting of iron. In a very simple way, when a metal, any metal will react with atmospheric gases like oxygen, then they will form oxides, and that is a corrosion of that particular metal. Or with any of the gas, they will form any other compound, and that will be corrosion for that metal. And those compounds are not as strong as the metal, so we consider it the different compound as corrosion of that metal. Let us see some of the example. First is for the silver. When silver articles we are placing out, then we can see a black coating on them. So when silver is reacting with sulfur, atmospheric sulfur, then it will make silver sulfide, and this silver sulfide will make a black coating on silver article. So this is termed as corrosion of silver. When we are talking about copper, then copper will react with atmospheric carbon dioxide, and we can see that copper's metal's vessel or that metal article will loses its shine periodically, and after that we can see a green coat on them. So that green coat is of copper carbonate. So this is how copper will get corrosion. When iron will come in a contact with moist air, we can see a brown coating on the iron, and we term this as rusting. So rusting is corrosion of iron, and this compound is iron oxide. So this is termed as iron's corrosion. Now how can we prevent it? We can prevent it by painting, oiling, greasing, galvanization, chrome plating, anodizing, or making alloy. Now this too we are very familiar with. This also we know. When galvanization is coating of zinc, which we are doing with the help of electrolytic process. Chrome plating is also a plating of metal, chromium plating. Then anodizing is also electrolytic process, and making alloys. Making alloys means when we are mixing 2 or 3 metal, and which will not corrode easily like our base metal. Now let us see about galvanization and alloy making process. So first we will see galvanization. Galvanization is a method of protecting steel or iron while we are coating metal with zinc. So when a steel or iron will be there, we are making a coating of zinc on them. And this process is known as galvanization. So what is a galvanization? When we are coating a zinc on iron or any other metal to prevent them from rusting or to prevent them from corrosion. That is known as galvanization. So even if the coating of zinc is broken, the iron is protected against corrosion. Why? We have made a coating of zinc on iron. If that coating has been broke down or that coating has come off, then also the iron is protected once it is galvanized. How it is possible? Zinc is reactive compared to iron. So whenever we are coating zinc on iron, zinc will react with atmospheric oxygen and it will make zinc oxide. So that thin layer of zinc oxide will further prevent iron from corrosion. So even if the coating of zinc is broken, then also the article will get protection from the corrosion. Now what is alloying? So method to improvising properties of metal is known as alloying. Basically the alloy is a homogeneous mixture of metal. So what we are doing when we are making alloy, we are taking first a base metal, then we are adding some other metals to that. We are melting a base metal and then we are adding another metals which we want to add into them in a liquid form. Then we again mix them well in a liquid state. Then we will leave them to come till the room temperature. This is how we are making alloy. This is a homogeneous mixture of metals. Alloy, what we will get is a improvised quality or it has a better quality compared to base metal. Let us see how. So let us take example of iron. The pure iron is soft and when it is hot we can stretch it very easily. And it will get rust also very easily. When we will mix this with carbon, only 0.5% carbon, then it will become strong and hard. So wherever we are using hard iron, we are mixing iron with the carbon. When we are mixing iron with nickel and chromium, in that case we will get a stainless steel. And we know that stainless steel we are using in cutlery and in machinery use. Why? Because it is hard also and it will not get rust. So it will not get rust. So this is improvised metal. From iron we got a stainless steel from the alloying method and this is improvised method. So method to improvise property of metal is alloying. And what is alloy? It is a homogeneous mixture of metals. So this is how we can change a property of metal by adding another metal to that. That process is known as alloying. When we are taking mercury as a base metal and we are making alloy, it is known as amalgam. Now, electrical conductivity and melting point of an alloy is less than the pure metal. Why we are saying so? Because when we are making a brass alloy, and this is an alloy of copper and zinc. When we are making a bronze alloy, which is a alloy of copper and tin. So here copper is known for its electrical conductivity. And these two alloys are not good conductor of electricity, whereas copper is used to make electrical circuits. So that's why we are saying that electrical conductivity and melting point of an alloy is less than the pure metal. And that the example of this is brass alloy and bronze alloy. Now, soldering is also an alloy which is used for welding electrical wires together, and it is an alloy of lead and tin. So this is one of the reasons which can be asked, that even if copper is a good conductor of electricity, the alloy of copper, that is brass or bronze, is not used for electrical circuit. Why? So we can say that electrical conductivity and melting point of an alloy is less than the pure metal. And brass is not a good conductor, bronze is not a good conductor of electricity, and that's why we are not using them for electrical circuit or soldering or whatever the use they have mentioned. Here this alloy is of copper and zinc. This can be asked in 1 mark question, multiple choice, or in the fill in the blank. That which is the alloy which is made from copper and zinc or vice versa. So this we need to remember that brass alloy is made up of copper and zinc. Bronze alloy is made up of copper and tin. And here soldering is made up of lead and tin. So this we need to remember. With this corrosion topic, our chapter ends here, and in coming videos we are going to solve some of the questions from the exercise. So don't forget to subscribe, learn yourself. I'll see you in next video. Till then, keep learning, keep sharing.